As other informations are still pouring out because of the June 12, 1993 election, because of the IBB book launch, or should I say IBB confession, here is the hero of that particular election, who is an Igbo man. Now, during that time, he was the next chairman of the election, and his name is Professor Humphrey Nwosu. Now, during that election, this man hold down, say Nehi Gaba, despite the heat that is coming from left, right, and center. This man said no, that he must follow the rule of law. And at the end of the whole election, he declared Abiola the winner of the election before the annulment. Now, as you all know, that so many people has been bashing IBB because he said that external forces contributed to the annulment of the election. In fact, this interview you are going to hear, he made it so many years ago, and he listed those who were involved in the annulment of that particular election, plus other interpretation that is coming from Arise News interview. In fact, let me allow you to listen to them. But as you are listening, make sure you are clicking on that share button, and also subscribe in case if you have never done so, for more updates. And after that, I'll be back. Let's go there.
A journey in service unveiled last week, Babangida in the memoir had claimed that forces against the June 12 election were led by the late General Sani Abacha, his chief of defense staff, who later became military head of state. The election, which was widely regarded as the freest and fairest election in Nigeria's history, was presided over by the late Professor Humphrey Nwosu, the next chairman at the time. Well, in an interview that has resurfaced online, Professor Nwosu mentioned several names of those he said were involved in the schemes that led to the annulment of the election. Let's take a look.
Professor Nwosu, you're welcome to Sahara TV. Just a very quick interview here. One of the things that Nigerians respect you for is what you talked about today, that you established a new political balloting process for the country that remains in place till today. But the question that remained unanswered was the circumstances under which you left the stage in 1993. The last word we heard from you until you wrote a book was that this election is inconclusive. And the Professor Nwosu that everybody knows to be erudite and very charismatic and had laid down a very powerful political process disappeared from public view. What happened to you after the election on June 12, 1993?
I didn't disappear. Part of the problem was that of the media too. Let me explain the process. From June 16, 1993. Remember, we were promised that if that election was conducted to be free and fair, accepted by international observers and local observers, that we would be given national honors. So my colleagues were also working hard as Nigerians. So when, according to our efforts, you knew all the problems, all the restrictions, in spite of all that, June 12 came. The election was conducted, it was peaceful, materials were distributed all over Nigeria promptly in all difficult terrain because of arrangement and logistic preparation we put in place. So when the results started coming in, June 13, 14, in fact it was to be concluded around June 17, 18. The other party, NRC, had even congratulated SDP for winning. You know, suddenly there was a letter served on me by Commissioner of Police that we should cease forthwith in releasing the result. I summoned on June 16 emergency meeting of the commission. All the results had come in with the exception of that of Taraba, which the resident electoral commissioner from Delta, Professor Sada, was on his way to bring. We would have released the result about June 17. So they said, stop. I was served. In fact, I was called in a meeting of National Defense and Security Council and said, would you release this result without knowing? I said, that's the law. There was no provision of the highest ruling military body to vet the result. The law says that the result should be announced at each level. The polling station level, ward headquarters, local government, state, and finally their conclusion at headquarters. In fact, almost every person, owing to the communication system we put in place, could even collate to know that Abiola had won. Now, with that, my commission met and we decided that we would challenge that ruling by court, Abuja High Court, because it's Commissioner of Police that served it. And when the next step was I was summoned at the level of the National Defense Security and Defense Council.
Headed by Babangida?
Babangida and Abacha was prominent. They said, okay, that a committee headed by Abacha should find a solution to the problem. I said, how do we find a problem? We should be allowed to conclude what we started to say. Abacha, in that committee, I'm quoting names. Abacha was in it. Nyako, Nyako was in it. General Aliyu Gusso was in it. David Mark was in it. Was the Minister of Communication. I was in it. Secretary of the Commission, Director of Legal Services was in it. Professor Deria, National Commissioner representing River State. We met in Abacha, when we met in Abacha's house, guest house in Abuja. He set another subcommittee, including myself, Akpambo, late now, Akilu, the Secretary of the Commission, I think one other advisor-in-law in State House. When we got at that subcommittee level, I told them, gentlemen, there is nothing for us to meet. The law is clear. Elections have been conducted. Results have been collected. The only one remaining is that of Taraba. And he had come along with it. Please allow us to conclude. We are a technical body. We are not politicians. In any case, if you don't want us to release the result, you should call Abiola and Tofa or negotiate with Abiola that Abiola was the winner. Well, you know, military. The military personnel in it were afraid. They said, okay, you report, you are the chairman of the commission. We went back to Abacha's guest house. And I reported, well, sir, the law that allowed us to conclude this election made no provision for this technical body, for your committee. You should allow us to conclude the result with that of Taraba and announce it. Or you call in Abiola and negotiate with him. He shouted on me, who are you to tell us what to do? You are not a member of National Defense and Security Council. You are not. The council and the court decided you should not conduct the election. You went ahead and conducted the election, that it was illegal. You will recall, throughout Abacha's regime, his Minister for Information regarded the election as illegal. He said, well, you are not a member. Go to Aso Rock, where all of us will now take a decision. what will happen? Call all your national commissioners. That was, it's a military regime. So, because many people didn't know what, so I was to call my secretary to invite all my national commissioners to come to Aso Rock. It was David Mark. He was then the Minister of Communication, who called, used mobile. That's when the mobile was starting. He called myself, Andrew Mana. I'm mentioning them. Called them. You all wanted at Aso Rock. We went there. Here was a full meeting.
Which date was that?
Was around 18 yes, all this 18 June. When we got there, Babangida said, NEC, National Electoral Commission, what is your position on this election? I answered, I was the boss, leadership of NEC stops with me. I said, sir, allow us just 2 minutes so that it will not be Humphrey Nwosu's decision. It will be that of National Electoral Commission. He said, okay, 2 minutes. We went to one of the rooms. Said, gentlemen, ladies and Eruku was a lady National Commission. We don't have anything to do with politics of this. They should allow us to conclude and announce whoever did not like the outcome should go to tribunal. That's the provision of the law. You know, we were talking of institutions. Allow institutions to work. Whoever didn't like it should go to tribunal. They said, you are reporting. Okay. We came out. Sir, this is the decision of the commission. Allow us to conclude this election and announce the result. And that we will challenge that letter, court decision, which Commissioner of Police served on me, that we should stop announcing it. We will go to Federal Court of Appeal, Kaduna Division. So he said, okay, you people are on your own.
Babangida said that.
The decision of their he said, well, you know, in all this I've mentioned them. So you went to court, not by the Attorney General of the Federation should have championed that position, but he did not. It was Director of Legal Services in NEC, Bello. He's still alive. No, Buhari Bello. I mentioned in my book. Went to Kaduna Court of Appeal, filed the papers. We submitted all the results, including that of Taraba, showing that Abiola won the election. Abiola was represented by Eke Ajayi. Tofa was represented. The court held first sitting. His Justice Okay Achike mentioned it. Okay Achike, late, may his soul rest in peace. Was the chairman. He was ready to conclude. He ordered Abuja High Court to submit all matters relating to the election, all the results, and they were submitted to his court for accelerated hearing and decision for June 25th, 1993. Please. Now, this was done. Abiola was represented. He knew all that. And when you submit something to court, it becomes public document. Is it not? All the results were submitted to the court, appeal division, headed by Oke Achike, showing that Abiola won. Abiola knew. Why did Nigerian press not pick it from? Now, when this was to be done, June 25th, the military quickly dissolved my commission on June 23rd.
But one quick question.
Yes.
That there was a pronouncement you made that this election is inconclusive.
Because the
Definitely.
result was no.
Which date was that?
I can't quite remember, but it may have been in the book. The date, the inconclusive that we were not allowed to announce it. It became a subject of court dispute, and all the results, as shown in this book, no other result, as shown in the court, submitted before June 20, before my commission was dissolved. All the election results were submitted. It became public document. And when my commission was dissolved on June 23, we were sacked.
Where did you go next?
What will I do when I'm no longer chairman?
Where did you go?
No, I was in Nigeria.
You went back to Enugu?
We went back to Enugu. I went, first when it was annulled,
Was there any time you were threatened physically, bodily harm?
No, I wasn't, to tell you the truth. No person harmed me. But throughout Abacha's regime,
everybody was keeping a low profile.
Thank you. When June 12th is coming close, some police will
parading
around my yes.
Just to make sure that you don't make any pronouncement.
Yes, because we were dissolved. Because if I had made a pronouncement, I was no longer chairman. The commission was no longer the appointed Oya.
So you're saying for public record to
yes,
say that Abiola won that election?
I am saying it. And it's in my book. I've said this is not the first time. And in all the documents we submitted as far back as June 20, 1993, and which we submitted by Buhari Bello, Director of Legal Services, not Attorney General of the Federation, to tell you the extent I went.
But the question people ask, and why your book was so controversial, was the fact that it seems to be always protective of
no. Why I did about no. I didn't protect about Abacha. What happened is that when on June 11, I appeared before the meeting of National Defense and Security Council. When it became obvious they didn't want election because they were divided, Abacha group, Abacha wanted to, and you could see it thereafter when Babangida stepped aside and Shonika was met. He pushed Shonika was meant to resign. Abacha took over. So this indicated that the military was divided.
Were you in touch with Babangida after this decision, after your organization was dissolved? Or have you been in touch with him in such a way as to compare notes, like when people allow things to go down?
No. He even because he knew all that I said in that book was truth. I mentioned name. I mentioned Nigeria. No one when you mention name, if it's a lie, they will challenge you. I've mentioned David Mark again about people who invited us to come to Asoro. I mentioned Nyako. He's still living. I mentioned all the people. Bello, Director of Legal Service. Unfortunately, Akwambo is no more from my own part of the country. He didn't believe in what, But Bello, from Kebbi, there were really some Nigerians because who felt if we allow the process, because we believe in the two-party structure. We believe that the election was free and fair. We believe that Nigerians, even NRC had accepted the result. We believe it had allowed, Abiola would have had his 8 years, another person would have, and the institution would grow. I talked here about institution building. It is when you grow, have sense of mission, you learn by experience, you conduct it, you hand over, and there can be no substitute to parties that start from grassroots and is open and is funded by government. No one man will bring his money to decide I'm going to endorse, I'm going to see all the endorsement in Nigeria.
The question I was trying to raise when I was asking you questions that couldn't you have taken another route? of say you take your family, you get out of the country, and make the pronouncement, or make the pronouncement.
Pronouncement as what?
To pronounce the winner of the election.
The winner of why did no. You belong to media. Are you saying the media didn't have access to the result I submitted that became public record? Did media not know? You know, I heard no. I heard series of interviews in Nigeria. When Abacha, when Abacha used, when Nadeko, when he came out, they all ran to United States, ran all over. I was in Nigeria. No one, when I went, I wasn't invited in the meeting of June 11, 1993. And when we were said, did any person come to my defense? None. When we were sat, no one asked. The people used, I wasn't invited in the meeting of June 11, 1993. I wasn't invited.
But you went there?
I went there. In fact, I was
Why did they allow you in?
No, because I was a regular customer to Aso Rock. Because they saw me, I move in, no one will ask, and they went, because the military was divided, no one told them, don't allow Humphrey to come in, because they would expect that seeing Humphrey, they wouldn't check, So I seized on that, and I went with Bello, the person who went to Court of Appeal. He was even fidgeting because we were not invited. So when we got to gate, he said, oh, chairman, okay, go. Second gate, third gate. See all these security measures. Sometimes God checks. When we got to president's office, before you go to where they were at, you must pass through his ADC. Nuhu Buhamale, he died as a major general from Kano. He was those who wanted the election to take place, because it would have been an honor to him and his boss. It was he who contacted Babangida to say that Humphrey was around. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had access. I wouldn't tell you impossible, tell you lies. It was he who told he said, but he wasn't invited. He said, let him come upstairs. If Babangida had said, don't come, I wouldn't have ventured. Did I carry a gun? Did I have any person escorting me? He said, unfortunately, at Bambo, I had met him earlier. He said, why this court this thing? It was he who really told me that that meeting will be holding at 10 o'clock, June 11, that I should go and rest. After the meeting, I will be asked to conduct the election. Something in me, but why? Why wasn't I invited? Why would they hold that kind of meeting without hearing? Because everything, it was my commission. National commissioners were in the field. Ballot papers had been distributed to state level, and that if you postpone it, it will be rigged. So there was urging me to go and explain. It's not something.
Let me ask you, Prof.
Yes.
For those years of turmoil,
yes,
that you were in Nigeria, how were you feeling about?
It wasn't easy. I must tell you.
Were you depressed, panicking?
I was, I just decided within me, whatever will be, will be. That is good. You don't die twice. You die once. You die for what you believe. We believed in Nigeria. We believed in that election. We believed in the reforms we were carrying out. And to that level, Babangida believed it. That's why he supported us. We were talking of offices.
But nobody believes that Babangida wants the election.
No. I think my personal opinion, what happened, he was torn apart. He wanted to be a hero, to hand over power. But his friend, who was heading, wanted to be president. So the two.
But if you knew, why didn't you retire him from the army?
That's a question you should answer, not Humphrey. No, the problem is that So that's my view, because there was strong opposition from him. The way he shouted on me, it's in my book. Will I tell lie for something which for international community? Committee was set and he shouted on me. Who are you?
You still haven't told me if you met Babangida after that. Did you buy your book? Did you like it? Did you complain?
Well, there's no question of meeting him to buy my book. I invited him when they launched in June 12th. He didn't show well, the mood of the nation.
Yeah.
He would have, but most other people showed up. Most other people showed. Some were afraid, and the media didn't help matters because from outright, even before the day, the previous day, they started condemning me that I colluded with the military to annul without hearing my own side, without knowing that without me going to their meeting, they wouldn't have been June 12th. That I took risks without knowing that I was sacked. There was no disengagement allowance, none till today.
They didn't pay you?
They didn't pay me and was sacked. Who would like it? Many Nigerians, do they like to be sacked? How many Nigerians will attend the meeting of military senior, the highest ruling military body in Nigeria without invitation?
But couldn't you have resigned when it was obvious that...
Resigned and leave the election because they would have said it was, maybe I was induced to resign. I wanted to push it through.
I wanted to ask if the opposition reached out to you.
No. I did.
You weren't communicating?
No, I didn't. All effort by the two sides to reach me, none. I stopped it because I said whichever party won is good enough. But Abiola won in Kano. So it's unfortunate. And I wanted the passion to cool before my book so that people can now read it and see the fact. And I'm happy there are people who are still alive, I mentioned, by name. So you people who are in media, and Sahara is, you're on the internet.
Internet based.
So I will check on what you like. And how you distribute it to your counterpart. I blame the media for not going all out when all the results were submitted before June 23. The military was frightened that perhaps Justice Achike would allow NEC to conclude the result. That's why they dissolved us suddenly, without any notice. They dissolved us. That means you are whatever you are doing, you are no more part of. Remember, it was military regime. Remember, and when they appointed me, I didn't know, and deserve, even though they have been, Babangida complied, give me this, allow me do this, open ballot, allowed me, modified open ballot, they allowed me to nurture the political association, out of which two were to be selected. He allowed me to nurture SDP and NLC. He allowed me to conduct empirical verification on what political associations did to discover that none of them was truly national. And problem we are having in Nigeria is those two parties, they are dominant, they are not truly national, PDP and APC, as NRC and SDP, because they all grew from group and they have equal or almost structure of membership from each state of federation. In the east, west, north, they were balanced and they were all co-founders and co-owners, and no money bag, as where they were referred. National leader was allowed to dump his money to influence who goes to Senate. Everything was through primary, whoever emerged for ward election or local government or state election, through what is happening here. And other democracies. And unless we return to that, we are not making any headway.
Absolutely. In this voice, in this recording, you could hear Professor Humphrey Nwosu corroborating what IBB had said, that the person who led that whole annulment was General Sani Abacha.
So there are a couple of other, and Professor Humphrey Nwosu passed recently, is one of the heroes in this country to celebrate.
Unsung hero.
One other person, because he mentioned Akpango is late today. One other person that can fill up this tedious link is our dear own Onukairabo.
Yes. Because
he also played a prominent role as regards that declaration that was given and that was read out, that unsigned document that called for the annulment. A lot of journalist personnel are no longer around, the likes of them, Otto Nzeribe and Better Nigerian Group and all of that. So we also need to hear from Ndukaira. But I think we had spoken about these things before, but at his own time he's going to.
Yeah.
But yes, so I think the conversation now is the conundrum between IBB and Abacha. You can see Abacha's kids coming up to say that, you've always looked up to him, his envy and all of that. But those also forget, there was a lot of power tussle in the military right up to that time. It was also part of the power tussle that made the transition, the date line for transition changed a couple of times, that earned Babangida the moniker, Maradona. The truth about the matter is, we should now ask questions that, apart from Abiola emerging, which was a strong force based on his antecedents, and part of the things they said, he was also a contractor to government that owed him a lot of money. Who were the other also military guys that felt they were entitled to the presidency on leadership of the country? Because one part we don't talk about in June 12 was the fact that there was no way those guys were ever going to let go in the first place.
Well, if you want me to be honest with you, let me tell you a story. So my friend who's wiser than me told...
You guys were ever going to let go in the first place. Abacha, for instance, that the general norm around he was being called Khalifa. He was the one that saved Babangida's life in the area, Okaku and all of that. That's one. Other people that were around that place that felt, this could also go our way, that were eyeing the same leadership of Nigeria. Then a stronger candidate emerging like MK Abiola. The also other question is, if a TOFA had emerged, would they have given to a TOFA? So we should also look at the fact that the case of June 12 was another power play among the military apparatchik themselves. The question is, could Babangida have done better to protect? Today, like they say, hindsight is always 20/20, whatever we say. But he has put his own side out there. But most importantly, I think those we don't talk about enough were the unsung heroes that were killed in this June 12 saga. People that were killed in Lagos and killed in other parts of the country, the journalist Kauto, and the real activists, not the cashtivists. I can't speak for the NLC's position in June 12. I can only speak for the likes of the Franco Coris of this world. And I say it, I'm throwing ammunition and weapon today. Because there were a lot of cashtivists and activists. I can't boldly hit my chest for the role of the NLC. I could only speak for people like Franco Kori of blessed memory.
All right. Well, we've called on Ndukaira, but he's actually alive. So hopefully, we'll hear from him soon. It's not just on this table that we've called for him. Well, before I come to you, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, has stated that the late MKO Abiola was already recognized by Nigerians as the elected president since 1993. Falana made the comment during a television interview on Tuesday. He noted that Babangida's admission merely confirms what Nigerians have believed about June 12.
Since 1993, he has been recognized by the people of Nigeria as an elected president. They are just these guys, who try to set the ants of the club are just recognizing that now. And the last one is about this they want to set up a library. No former military head of state has ever set up a library. What do you want to read there? You can only have a library set up by an elected president. You understand me? So I hope they will, title it well. It should be military, a former military president, whatever, library. It shouldn't just be a presidential library because you confuse people.
Always so animated. To confuse people, absolutely. And he's not the only one talking about that. I mean, this was the call. I mean, the conversation was around whether or not MK Abiola should be seen as the president of, former president of Nigeria or not. Recognized.
So between IBB and MK Abiola, the legitimate president who was elected by the Nigerian people is actually MK Abiola. And so I agree with that train of thought. I've been quite uncomfortable with the self-styled giving him his title of president, because at the end of the day, it's whitewashing it. He didn't come in as an elected president. He assigned himself as a president. He was a military dictator, and that's what it is. Now, with regards to recognizing MK Abiola as president, I think the Buhari administration tried to do something like that by recognizing Abiola as one. And people have said that more than anyone else, President Tinubu should even push this further, being at the forefront of fighting for democracy, especially post-June 12 elections, the 1993 elections. So it might be something that he might now want to consider with regards to giving him the full accolades and actually the compensation that is required. He's not here, unfortunately, to enjoy this confession. It is too late in some instances, but it's good for his history of Nigeria so that we can rewrite and set history right. Now, when it comes to Abacha, the truth is that from that statement, and I'm glad that you brought up that interview from Professor Nwosu, it was clear that Abacha was one, there might have been an unwritten agreement that following his tenure, Abacha would take over. He was chief of defense staff, so naturally in that order, he would have come up next if there was a if he stepped aside. Yeah. But there was also, from the stories that have been told, a willingness by IBB to transition to democratic rule. And I believe that despite his intentions, the people like Abacha and those other senior military officers you talked about would have refused for that because it was their own turn to now come into power. However, the final point I'll make on this is that if you read, and I'll refer to Dr. Bati's article, back-page article on Tuesday, at the end of the day, it's sad, but you might as well describe his actions as being cowardly. He sold Nigeria for one man's ambition. So whether or not he says, oh, it wasn't my fault, it was Abacha's fault, the truth is that you were the military president. At the end of the day, as we often say, the buck stops with you. You cannot come and be saying it was my chief of defense staff who was calling the shots. What kind of leader does that make you? A leader who was not actually in charge? So that's why I say many more questions have come from this week's responses, but I think it gives more clarity bringing this up.
Well, no, just very briefly, I think I get the intention, but it's going to be a bit odd to call MKO president. President-elect, I think, is the best they can get. President-elect. In terms of technical things. Then he can be the people's president in the sense that, and it is very important to be recognized as people's president, because what this shows is that while some people were in denial, the general public had agreed, had known the truth. So while some people are now coming here to discover hot water, most of us had moved on beyond that. We've always known he won the election, and some people concreted it. And I think it is good in the history of Nigeria to know two things. One, those who stood for the truth in time, at the junction, every time in life, in history, remember where people are. And the second thing is to recognize those who paid some prices for it. You don't have to die. There are some people who, because of the June 12 issue, delayed their life. I know people who got their PhD years later than they should have gotten it. I know people whose marriage went through. There's a lot of things about it, and I think it would be very wrong to trivialize it. It is very important to keep it as a strong part of our history.
All right, well said, Professor Anthony Killer.
You get the point. Now, just like I was telling you on my previous videos, this issue will continue to get clearer and more interesting. Just make sure you are sharing your thought on a steady basis, and also subscribe so that when I post a new video, you will be among the first person that will get it. Because like this, we move.